Welcome to another episode of the Two World Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm Jacob, and I have with me today.
I am Barney.
And the two of us are going to be talking about something that has been on our list for a long time, and that is personality types. Barney came up with this idea very early when we were brainstorming topics for the podcast, and we've had it there on the list and wanted to return to it. And I'm glad that we finally are getting to it. Barney suggested that we use a certain personality test, and I took it this morning, and I was really interested to find out the results. It confirmed things that I had already learned about myself, but it's a really great tool. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about that and hearing Barney's own experience being a teacher and having worked with material that delves into personality types. It's going to be exciting for us to hear what Barney has to share about that too. So just to get started, Barney, can you tell us a little bit about how this topic came to you, the idea of delving into personality types and why it interests you? Maybe a little bit of background would be great.
Yeah, I was kind of, so this kind of website, this kind of online personality test, it's based on Myers-Briggs. And I had a little bit of experience with it, even in high school. And then when I was working at the med school, I think one teacher kind of stumbled upon this website, and everything is kind of laid out in a really accessible, easy to understand way. And everything's kind of even kind of cute, the way that they designed the characters and everything. And one teacher brought it to everyone's attention and kind of wanted everyone to get in on it and find out, well, what's your personality type? What's your personality type? Do you agree? And that led us to wondering, are there personality types that are better suited for medical students? And it's funny, we ran across one article that was published. And it was actually from Europe that they did the studies, and they used Myers-Briggs, but they used other things too. And they also kind of concluded that there's no real one personality type that's better than others. But if I can just read or cite something interesting, probably, it makes sense after you say it from the abstract. They say that medical students who score low on conscientiousness, which they have like self-achievement or self-discipline, and high on gregariousness and excitement seeking, are significantly less likely to sit examinations successfully. So it kind of makes sense if you don't have that self-motivation, self-discipline, and you're seeking excitement and being really chatty with your friends. You might not prioritize your time for studying very well.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we worked this 16 personality type test into the into one lesson that actually I taught, and then we kind of I and another teacher kind of furtively, we made it a writing prompt. What is your personality type, and do you agree or disagree? And then from there, we collected everyone's personality type and just kind of watched scores and whatnot on different tests from the medical curriculum and on different tests that we gave them. And we also found, thankfully, not surprisingly, that there's no real one strong personality type that makes a good student or a good doctor. I think we just had good students in general, and I think maybe talking, the episode where we're talking with Lena, it's kind of clear to see that, there's a lot of different people who become doctors, and they have a lot of different gifts based on their different personalities. Kind of as a long introduction, the reason that this came to me, though, to make this introduction even longer, is I mentioned this on another episode. I think maybe Ken was with us in the episode where I was talking about the book Surprise the World by Michael Frost. And this really, I thanked you on that time, and I thank you again for introducing this book to me, because it's been about a missional person, five Five Habits of Highly Missional People, and it always felt inaccessible to me, thinking that being outgoing and evangelical, and being so bold and, not kind of feeling timid, that these are qualities that make someone who is missional, who can really get out there and talk with people and share their faith. And I felt that that was just inaccessible because I knew that I was fairly introverted. And then that made me wonder, well, what kind of personality types maybe make a good pastor? And then that's why I thought maybe this would be a good topic to discuss today.
Thanks, Barney. That's so interesting. I'm really glad that that book was meaningful to you. I felt it was really helpful for me too. And it helps us think about removing barriers that keep us from connecting with people and finding out how to be true to our own intuition and way of relating, but also being mindful of taking that to bless others and help others, and being authentic with who you are, but also finding a way to express your appreciation for your neighbor or someone else is so helpful. So, and I think that that's an interesting question about not only medical students, but could you plug in other professions, pastors, linguists, teachers. So for me, I've noticed that the variety of personality types in my local pastor peer group are extensive. And we have talked a lot about this other personality type test that's expressed with more biblical language. It's called the APEST. I don't know if you call it personality type tool or something, but it's trying to relate your personality type to some of the offices or ministry types listed in scripture, like apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher. That's what the APEST stands for. And so I found quite a few of my colleagues have the shepherding type of approach, which is what I have, which is very people-centered, focused on the well-being of the community. But I have found some pastors who have what they call the prophetic type of personality. They love to challenge, they love to ask hard questions and reflect on our institutions and how we're meeting the needs of society. Or even some of my colleagues have the apostolic gifting to forge forward and discover something new and create something large, a movement, or work towards mobilizing people. But I've noticed that with the different personality types, there are different pressures when serving in ministry. Like the apostle might be very, with their mindset, might be discouraged by people wanting to take a long time and deliberate before acting because they want to launch something new. They want to mobilize people, and they might not want to stay in the same place for a long time because they want new challenges. And so for them, like a longer term, a tenure that stretches, beyond 5 or 6 or 7 years to them might be hard because they're ready to move on. The prophet might find it challenging when they're pushing their congregation and they feel that they've caused hurt feelings or they've been misunderstood. The shepherd loves to try to ensure harmony in the community, but then may struggle when there is conflict. And so each person has their strengths and weaknesses. And I agree. I haven't found one in that profession either that is universally the best. So it's interesting. When you took a deep dive into this, what did you find out about your own personality type? You already mentioned that you're introverted. What other things did you learn?
Yeah, I actually I was surprised to see that my score between introverted or extroverted wasn't as skewed toward introvert as much as I thought it might be. It was actually like 40% to 60% to 40%, so pretty closer to the middle than what I thought it might be. I like the way that the website categorizes this. So mine became INFP, which is now I need to look. So introverted and intuitive and feeling and prospecting are what those the INFP, what the initials stand for. And they label it as the mediator is the way that they kind of reference this type of personality. And I realized, yeah, that's probably really true. I remember at and kind of maybe it was a retreat for MCC workers in Southeast Asia when I was in Thailand, and we got together, and I think some Mennonite missions were also Mennonite mission workers were involved in that as well. And we did have kind of like a personality, like not test, but kind of thinking, are you more on this side or that side of things? And the people I was talking with, they were surprised that I, in almost every situation, I said that I kind of prioritized or valued relationships and person's feelings more than other things. And I remember one person being surprised at me and thinking, you would, in this case too, you would put other people's feelings ahead of like making progress, like completing the project, something like that. And I thought, just to myself, I thought, well, yeah, of course, I would. But then, of course, now with more life experience, I do see that when maybe you really have to focus on, when things just aren't working. And yes, you have to, you can do it gently, but you have to kind of be going forward on some things as well, instead of always prioritizing the personality. And it might even hinder the person in doing it that way. But yeah, I realized that I was kind of like being categorized as the mediator. And I found out that it's also the most popular personality type, or maybe most common personality type in Japan as well. So my two Japanese colleagues were also mediators. But yeah, and but the other teachers, especially two other Japanese teachers, and then other teachers from other countries were all different, which was kind of fun to see. How can I ask how your score ended up being?
Yes, very similar to you, except the first designation is extrovert for me. So I'm ENFP. So with that little tweak, the website that we were using, the 16 personalities resource, said that I'm a campaigner, and I would have the role of a diplomat in how I relate to people. And so yeah, I'm very people focused in how I work and pursue partnership, and try to use my gifts. It's very related to, as you mentioned for yourself, how others can find connection and a place of belonging in what I'm doing, how they can feel affirmed. The challenging side of being an ENFP that I have to be mindful of is that it can, at its worst, lead towards people pleasing. And that's a problem. Sometimes, particularly with the ministry, you can't make everybody happy. And when you're trying to make a decision that honors the whole community and is healthy and works for the most positive outcome, sometimes the people pleasing can drive you crazy because you're working so hard to make everybody happy. It's important to bring people along in a discernment process and to work well at that. But if it reaches that excess where you're just trying to find a perfect solution to make everybody pleased all the time, it's exhausting and you can burn out. So that's something that is a liability or something I need to be mindful of. But then on the flip side, I'm grateful that I was born this way or have this personality type, because it does help me empathize with people and be aware of their needs, which is a really important in ministry and in life in general. So I'm grateful that I care about other people's feelings, and I find it genuinely important to seek those things out. So that was interesting for me and affirming again to hear that, because I've heard that before. But there was another designation too on the test that I've never seen before. After the initial 4, it adds something. It adds it like for me, it was an A for assertive.
Mhm.
And so that was interesting. What was your designation after the initial 4? Do you know?
Yeah, also A.
Also
Mhm.
A. Okay,
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I don't know what that extra layer adds. Do you have a sense uh, of what that?
The kind of sub-personality, like a little bit of differentiation at the end. So it's either assertive or turbulent. And wonder how they came up with those, because they say that assertive individuals are self-assured and even-tempered and resistant to stress, that they don't worry so much, which doesn't quite usually line up with how we define someone who is assertive. Um, and people who are turbulent, they say that are much more success driven, maybe perfectionist, eager to improve. Kind of sounds like a kind of a go getter, which actually sounds kind of assertive, if you ask me. Um, and I think that there must be within, I think it's 100 questions that they had on the test. And maybe within some of those answers that we give, they kind of can flesh out um, which side that somebody might land on, in order to kind of give a little bit more detail and maybe differentiate between this type of INFP and that type of INFP.
I think that's really interesting, Barney. And for anybody who's using the Myers-Briggs tool in general, or this website and specifically, you'll find that some of the ways that the language is used is very
Mm-hmm.
specific and different than what we typically expect. I just
Mm-hmm.
remember the first time I heard the designation ENFP. Um, there were different pairs that in each of the letters is a spectrum, and you fall at a different place on the spectrum, though your preponderance is more towards one end or the other. So could we just name quickly the pairs? Like introvert extrovert is the first one.
Right. Yeah. And let's see. Actually, I wonder, I thought about sharing slides or not, but I think it might be helpful just to really quickly just
Sure.
take, so that if people are watching along, they can get a little bit more out of it. Yeah, they had judging and, oh, sorry, here the
Oh wow.
yeah, observant or intuitive. And then observant people might be practical and pragmatic. Intuitive might be curious and open-minded. Thinking and feeling. So whether they prioritize logic over emotion, or cooperation over competition for thinking and feeling, for feeling. And then finally, judging or prospecting.
Mm.
If someone, what do people value? Do they place priority or value on clarity, predictability, and structure? For judging or for prospecting, maybe they are more happy with spontaneity and improvising, flexibility. And I think that it kind of makes sense with you and I, as you and I really do teach. And, and when we're in the moment, or, when we get questions or when thoughts come to us, we, even if we have our lesson or our sermon laid out in front of us, ready to go, these thoughts, these connections come to us, and we go with it, the spontaneity, or we improvise a bit on, here's that connection. Oh, wait, let me just mention this thing, here. I think that I've noticed that that you have kind of that kind of, when watching your sermons, I think there's kind of like, I want to say like a live aspect to it. It's not rehearsed, it's not on tape.
Yes.
Like here comes, oh wow, that kind of just occurred to Jacob, and here comes this new extra insight that he'll share with us. And I feel that I was often doing that with my students. Hopefully they didn't think another tangent,
Mm,
and
mm.
then I just thought, well, here's this teachable moment, that's spontaneity, that's improvising, right?
Oh, that's a really good point, Barney. I have some colleagues that like to read from a manuscript when they preach, and they find that that is very grounding for them, and they make all the points that they want to make, and don't, in their spontaneity, don't accidentally forget something or move past a certain segment. But for me, with my personality type, I found early on that it was more meaningful to look out at the congregation and to try to perceive at times where people were with the topic, and have more of an interactive experience. And so I kind of pursued that. And so then my sermons really are outlines then that are very much infused with spontaneous moments throughout, which for me has been helpful. But I have found that it is refreshing at times to mix it up and have a message every once in a while that is more rehearsed, or the content is a little bit more structured. And of course, it's always nice to have guest speakers and for the congregation to get another style. But that's really true. I'm glad that you put your finger on that. I think it is hard for the prospecting person sometimes. I'm once again going to relate this to ministry. When there is a fresh idea and there's excitement building and enthusiasm for what something can be, and you're kind of playing with the idea, you're experimenting. And then if you get a strong judging response, once again, Myers-Briggs is being technical in how it uses judging. It's not like they're being judgmental. It's that they're seeking out structure and clarity and continuity with practice of the past. But when that comes, sometimes it can feel like it really deflates and puts a wet blanket, so to speak, on the sense of excitement and newness. And and sometimes in ministry, I've had to learn to find ways to, as a prospecting person, hear the comment about structure and continuity and integrate it somehow into the discernment process in a way that seeks to not lose the enthusiasm. So if that makes sense, I don't know, that is it can be a challenge, but when you are able to do it, it's very rewarding. So I was wondering, for you in the teaching setting, what were the aspects of your personality that you feel were the greatest assets? And then what were some of the ones that you recognize, like I had mentioned, creates pressures or challenges sometimes? Love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I was so new to teaching at the university level, and I felt at first that maybe I was out of my depth, and I thought, oh boy, can I really do this? And my colleague gave me, I was even just thinking about this morning, gave me the best compliment that maybe I'll ever get in my life. He said, you remind me of the teacher from Dead Poet Society. Of that,
Wow.
yeah. And I said, whoa. I thought, wow, really? And he listed all of these reasons, and I just was taken aback and shocked. And I think that, and then I heard from a lot of students, either mentioning in class comments or, like talking to each other, that they thought Martin Sensei, what they called me, Mr. Martin, has this great smile. They said, there's something about that smile that just makes everyone feel at ease and get interested in the topic. And I thought, I didn't really think that I was doing that. I don't know what that is. And I think that for sure, the feeling aspect and the prospecting aspects of my personality probably are a real strength, especially for teaching at that level. And I think, especially teaching in the context of Japan, where the students are used to real one-way style of learning, and then I can use these kind of aspects of my personality to just flip everything, around from what they're used to. And I think that maybe the introverted part is a challenge at times. I mean, you can see the differences in teachers who are just so outgoing And it can be a challenge for me. Sometimes I really have to push myself to really reassure myself that it's okay. And just really take a step, take a real leap of faith sometimes to try things when I think, maybe it's better to be a little bit um more cautious, and maybe just don't try this new thing, it might not go so well. And, you know, or thinking, sometimes feeling, really reflecting on myself and how I did during class, really having a real, not just introverted, but introspective outlook. And then maybe kind of having that class weigh too much on me, oh, I didn't do as well as I hoped. And then for me, I get refreshed by having time alone, right? And
Yes.
I think maybe other people get refreshed by bouncing ideas, or kind of reflecting on how things went with other people. What did you, yeah, like Sean often would say, you were in my class. What did you think? What did you think? What did you think? What did you think? And then he needs that feedback, as he's really an extrovert, to help him kind of get past that. And for me, I would just say, okay, guys, I'm just gonna, if you need me, I'll be down the hall, in this private office, and just having some quiet time. And so it helped me to get recharged and put things in perspective. But yeah, that can be challenging as a teacher who is teaching people who are, not so distant in age, who, are much more aware of the world around them than the people that I teach now. So yeah, that was a challenge, I think.
Well, I think it's interesting to think of your breadth of experience in the classroom, ranging from young children all the way up to graduate students, and how the feeling aspect of your personality, and like you said, the prospecting, that creative impulse lets you flex and adapt your approach to relate to them. And that is really fantastic. I also find it so interesting that you um, noted that a common personality type in Japan lines up with yours. And isn't that fascinating too? Like that you would have this personality type, and it could be an aid to you in a culture that you're immersed in now, and is part of your life, your family, and your future. And so it's like, well, that's convenient. That, I mean, it's it's not maybe like perfect all the time, but there are a number of things that line up there. Do you find that to be true? Or
Yeah, I wonder that you pointed that connection out. That really makes sense. Because maybe it's, Japan can be a hard place to adjust for people. And, if you go to a place where, people outside of Japan are gathering together who live in Japan, you hear a bunch of different opinions. And I think, yeah, for sure, the personality, um, having a personality type that's common to the people around you, probably in my case helps a lot for me to maybe realize what's happening a little bit better, or not take things so personally, maybe, but kind of just maybe it's easier to go through the flow, because I can maybe, in a way, maybe subconsciously understand that people are, acting this way, because I would have acted the same way, and it's not so grating. It doesn't feel so uh incongruent to the way that I'm living my life.
well, the other thing too, I'm wondering, and I know this is probably an oversimplification, but you often hear about how in Japan and other surrounding countries that there is much more of a collectivist mindset, a more robust sense of the common good, whereas here in the U.S. we're known for our rugged individualism. But with the INFP or the ENFP personality types, we're already concerned about harmony within the group and the community. So if you're going into a collectivist culture, that could be an asset, because you're already kind of mindful of how does your neighbor's experience fit into this interaction? Are they feeling okay? And how can I give them a good, contribute positively to their day? It already puts you in a good place to navigate that. I think. Is that
Mhm.
connection seem valid or?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think we talked about in a past episode the importance of neighbors here in Japan. And I think that the ENFP and INFP difference is, in your case, you would say, how can I help you to have a good day? And the INFP would say, how can I make it so that I don't ruin your day? And
Oh, oh. I remember when I was visiting, that there was a clipboard that you showed me that you said was circulating around the neighborhood, and it kind of had neighborhood announcements and things to think about. I thought, oh, how interesting! What a mindful practice that all of your neighbors would, pass this clipboard around so that everybody knew what
Mhm.
relevant information was there for them. So
Yeah.
maybe we can do an episode on neighborhoods next,
Oh yeah.
because we're
Oh yeah.
doing a sermon series right now called In the Neighborhood at church. So it's all about thinking about our neighborhoods and um, how we can be present where we are. So maybe to our audience, that may be coming up. You never know.
Yeah.
um, so, well, are there any final thoughts that you would have, Barney, as we draw this to a close?
Yeah. I wonder if I'll just wrap up, I guess. I probably think that you had the same thought when you were thinking about this topic, thinking about what Paul writes about the different parts of the body, the eyes and the hands and the feet, and that it takes what a wonderful collection of people to make the body of Christ. And even though we try to quantify different personality types and who you are, and you're this way and I'm that way and he's this way and she's that way, that maybe that's not true, or maybe it is true, but it is that wonderful collection, the eclectiveness, that makes up a wonderful and strong and healthy body of Christ. And it's fun to it's helpful to kind of try to figure out what kind of personality type you are, to give you a little bit more insight, and maybe a little bit more sense of ease as to who you are and living in your own skin. And maybe as a final thought, I forgot to make this point, so I'll kind of push this point through now about the book of Surprise the World, that the author very carefully and very clearly says that you don't have to be the introvert or the extrovert. You don't have to be that outgoing person to surprise the world and to be missional. That the thing that I should have said earlier, and I'm saying now, that the book makes you feel empowered no matter what your personality type is, that there is a niche, there is a role for all of us, that we can be missional people and reach our neighbors and reach the people on the train, down the street, in the store, in some way, and kind of remember to live how Christ was teaching us, and show them Christ's love, and what we are, the way that we're living our lives. And each day, it doesn't matter what type of personality you are, that there's a role for all of us. And so Jacob and I, we just want to say thank you for joining us today. And we hope that our talk today maybe give you some insight into who we are. And maybe you'll want to seek out this personality resource or different resources to gain some more insight into who you are. And we look forward to you joining us for the next episode as well. Thank you again.